A 103-day joint U.S. and Israeli military campaign against Iran. A fifth of the world's oil and gas supply choked off. Gas lines stretching from Pakistan to Vietnam, and severe economic shocks hitting every single person on Earth. Following the offensive, we've heard declarations of victory from Washington. The official political claim is that Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities are obliterated, and their ballistic missile industry has been razed to the ground. But classified assessments from America's own intelligence agencies tell a different story. They found only limited damage to those targets, concluding the timeline for Iran to build a nuclear weapon hasn't changed by a single day. To cut through the political spin, we are going to grade this conflict using a war ledger. We'll take the specific, publicly stated goals the US, Israel, and Iran brought into this war and score them against the actual text of the signed peace agreement. By tallying up the wins and losses in black and white, we can step back and see exactly which side now holds the most leverage in the region. The United States launched this campaign to achieve three things: eliminate Iran's nuclear program, destroy its ballistic missiles, and execute a quick regime change, a strategy modeled explicitly on the U.S. playbook for Venezuela, replacing a hostile leader with a compliant one. This U.S. scorecard tracks the reality of the peace deal. Article 9 states that, pending a final agreement, Iran will maintain the current status quo of its nuclear program. The U.S. went to war to erase the program and ended up signing a formal diplomatic document endorsing its continuation. On missiles, the result is identical. Instead of dismantling the program, the U.S. president publicly conceded that it's only fair to allow them to keep a ballistic missile arsenal. That's a second clear fail on the ledger. As for the attempt at regime change, the peace agreement actually does the opposite. Articles 10 and 11 lift sanctions on Iranian crude oil and unfreezes foreign bank accounts. This immediately unlocks up to $160 billion in revenue for the current Iranian government. The U.S. spent hundreds of billions of dollars on a military offensive, only to legally validate Iran's existing power structure and hand them a massive economic windfall. Israel entered the war with three largely unstated objectives: trigger the collapse of the Iranian government, secure Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's domestic political survival, and occupy southern Lebanon under the cover of regional chaos. Looking at this Israel scorecard, the regime change effort failed completely. While the U.S. and Israel did assassinate Iran's supreme leader, power smoothly transferred to his son. The government structure didn't fracture, it hardened. That military failure bled directly into Netanyahu's domestic standing. Polling shows 52% of Israelis believe his conduct harmed national interests, and nearly 60% say he should not run for office again, leaving him highly vulnerable to his ongoing corruption trial. Where Israel did succeed is in Lebanon. Capitalizing on a distracted U.S., they moved past their standard border incursions to seize a massive permanent security zone south of the Litani River, an area twice the size of Gaza. Israel managed to execute a massive territorial land grab, but failed entirely to neutralize their primary state adversary or protect their prime minister from domestic fallout. Iran's objectives were purely defensive and economic: survive the joint assault to extract capital for reconstruction, secure absolute control over the Strait of Hormuz, and establish military deterrence. This Iran scorecard highlights their financial success. With crude oil sanctions lifted by the peace deal, Iran is looking at $60 billion a year in new export revenue, easily covering the costs of the bombing campaign. During the 103 days of fighting, Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz. The peace agreement allows them to reopen it, while formally designing and collecting administrative maritime fees. They proved they can close a global trade artery at will and dictate the terms for anyone crossing it. By weathering a direct assault from a nuclear-armed superpower and inflicting severe economic costs on the global oil market, Iran achieved its ultimate strategic goal. They demonstrated that attacking their soil carries too high a price for Western nations to pay. Iran absorbed a devastating military strike and leveraged it to secure the most lucrative strategic and economic victory in their modern history. This master war ledger shows the final results are completely asymmetrical. The United States accomplished 0 of its 3 goals. Israel managed 1. Iran swept the board, 3 for 3. The conflict ends with a series of permanent shifts. Western regime change policy in the region is effectively dead. Israel occupies a massive stretch of Lebanon, and Iran holds an internationally recognized choke point over the world's energy supply while remaining heavily armed. This establishes a heavy psychological barrier in Washington. Any future U.S. administration considering a direct strike on Iran will look at the hundreds of billions of dollars spent, the diplomatic failures, and the global economic blowback, and think twice. The 103-day war demonstrates that overwhelming kinetic military dominance does not automatically translate to strategic success. The original goals have vanished, and the world will be navigating the fallout of this massive miscalculation for decades.